So today we're going to look at the types of herbs that I would gather from my garden if I felt the first signs of that sore throat that you get that heralds a virus. And I believe in hitting these things hard and hitting them quickly. And I do that by gathering up some really lovely, really easy to grow herbs, which some of them are also very easily foraged if you haven't got them in your garden. And you could probably even get hold of a few from your neighbour if you haven't got any yourself. So I'm going to start with one which technically isn't an antiviral. It's Gallium apparine, or cleavers. Now it's very good as a lymphatic cleanser, and I use it whenever I get those swollen glands or any kind of virus. To be honest, I like to hit it, and I like to hit it best as a cold water infusion. If it's the wrong time of year to get your gallium as a cold water infusion, you can always make a tincture, and I'll explain that at the end. But for now, this is also a very good spring tonic, and all I do is put a few sprigs of the cleavers into some cold water and leave it for upwards of an hour. It's really good if you just pop it in the fridge overnight and then just sip it through the day as you need it. The next thing we're going to talk about are daisies. Now they fell out of fashion but are having a resurgence, partly because they're very good for things like bruises and sore muscles, the sort of things that you would have reached for arnica for. But arnica is both endangered and also toxic if you take it internally, whereas daisies are safe internally as well as externally. And these little beauties are very good for coughs. So if you get a cough of any sort, pop a few in some boiling water and make a nice hot infusion. The next one is yarrow. Yarrow can be found all over the place. It grows quite profusely, and it certainly grows very well in the garden once you've planted it. It's very good for all kinds of things, but I throw it into all of my antivirals. The only contraindication here is do be careful if you're on anticoagulant drugs. And to be honest, all of these things are safe at normal sort of doses, so 2 or 3 cups of tea a day. If you feel you need more help, then do ask a medical herbalist who has actually been qualified to look at what medication you're also on and can take that into account for you. Then we move into the mint family, the lamiums. These are the aromatic herbs that are all very good as antivirals. Now the first one is mint, and you can tell the members of this family because they have a square stem and they have alternate leaves growing up the stem. Now apart from being a very good antiviral, and it helps to clear the nose, so it's a lovely one to put in a hot infusion and inhale, it also helps the memory. Then its very close relative, lemon balm or melissa. Again, an antiviral, but it's one of those herbs that's also uplifting, and it's good for anxiety. So it's particularly useful, we find, for settling your stomach if you've got one of those anxious, churny stomachs. The next one is rosemary. Rosemary is a strong antiviral, but is also very good, again, for helping with memory. And as with all of these, we advocate checking with your herbalist before you take them if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. And then there's sage. Now the good thing about rosemary and sage, and actually yarrow, is that they tend to be available all year round. Now sage, again, apart from being antiviral, is also very useful for the menopausal symptoms you get, like hot flushes and night sweats. And then we have its more Mediterranean cousin, which is thyme. Thyme is a strong antiviral, so it's great to throw a few little sprigs of that in to any mix you're making. And lastly, not one you expect to find in the UK, but this is olive. And I find actually it grows very well, and I keep it in a sheltered spot in the winter. Olive leaves have been found to be extremely antiviral as well. So what I tend to do is I would gather up all of those and I would make a tea of them. Now when you're making tea, it's very important to make sure that you cover it once you've put in the boiling water, so that you're not losing the wonderful volatile oils which float off first. I very often use one of these in-cup infusers, and I just pop a coaster over that. But I also find a little cafetiere works very well, and as well, of course, a teapot. I leave it to infuse for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I sip it hot or cold. And if you find that you don't like the taste, you can sweeten with a little bit of unpasteurized honey and get the added benefits of the honey as well. Now lastly, I'm just going to talk quickly about how you would make a quick tincture. Basically, what I would do is I would gather all of the herbs, or as many of those as you can find that I have mentioned already. Chop them up in a bowl, discard any brown leaves or anything that looks a bit manky basically. Pop them into something like a kilner jar or some jar that you can keep a weight on top. Now you can pay for weights, but I've actually made my own using a coffee lid and filled it with gravel which I've cleaned, and I find that works very, very well as a weight to keep my tincture herbs submerged. Then all you need to do is add the 43% vodka, or if you want to use whiskey, gin, brandy, it doesn't matter, you're just looking at that 43% alcohol. Fill it so that your herb is covered. Put it somewhere dark and check it periodically for the next 3 weeks. Then strain it off. Squeeze out as much of the juice as you can get, pop it in a dark bottle, and do make sure you label it, because it's really, really easy to forget what it was and when you made it. Now the good thing about these things that are bottled in alcohol is that they will last you years, so you can make up a big 500ml like this if you want and have it on standby. Obviously we would sort of say 5 mils 3 or 4 times a day for an adult, but do check with a herbal consultant if you want to give it to children, because the doses are considerably less. And lastly, if you do feel you need to talk to a medical herbalist, then you can contact me via my Facebook page, Love Your Life, or you can find myself and my 2 colleagues on the Fenland Natural Health page, and we'd all be very happy to help you. Thank you very much for listening.